Hi, y'all. Thanks for being here. We're just gonna wait a little bit to get started for as folks are flooding in. I feel like it wouldn't be an Asian event if you didn't start it a little bit late anyways.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Wow, you're having a great turnout, by the way.
Yeah,
I
no,
have
I'm
so many
I'm
amazing
surprised and
faces.
very happy. But yeah, I wanted to start off by saying welcome and a thank you to all of our sponsors. This event is something that is really near and dear to me and Ashley, and we're really thankful that all of y'all can be here with us today and with all of our really great segment hosts that we're super excited to share with you.
Yes, thank you guys so much for being here. And it just means so much to see all of your faces in here. I can't tell you. And Lunar New Year is it's a really big deal in my family. Normally there's like firecrackers and a huge feast and lion dancers hanging from the rafters of our restaurant and like kids running around asking for their lucky money and the red envelopes that a lot of y'all picked up as part of your gift packages for tonight. And like pieces of cabbage everywhere. It's like chaos and I love it. But because of the pandemic, y'all are literally my only plans for Lunar New Year because my family hates Zoom. So thank you guys so much for being here and being a part of my extended family tonight. So I get to celebrate Lunar New Year in good company. And Sabrina and I also wanted to start this evening with a land acknowledgement, which I should probably also acknowledge that I stole from the Boss Babes ATX website. But for those of us, I think the majority of us here tonight are in Austin, and just wanted to acknowledge that we, for those of us here, are on the occupied ancestral territory of the Tonkawa, the Lipan Apache, Karankawa, Comanche, and the Kawalitakan people. And then we also wanted to acknowledge that although Lunar New Year is, it's a time of celebration, but it's also been a really hard week and on top of a really hard year. And I think because this is an Asian American event, I have to also recognize that for Asian Americans especially, many of us are really angry and afraid right now because of the rise in hate crimes against Asians, specifically in this last week with the random assault and murders of elderly Thai, Vietnamese, and Filipino Americans across both of our coasts just in this last week. And it's also Black History Month and a reminder that we can stand up against the anti-Asian racism while standing for Black lives. And I know that's something that's really important to us as a coalition with Asian Democrats of Central Texas, which I didn't even mention. I'm here as a representative, as our vice president of Asian American Democrats of Central Texas, and my name is Ashley. But we wanted to recognize that a lot of the Black-led civil rights movements of the 60s are the reason why the Immigration Nationality Act could even happen in 1965. And that policy is the reason why so many Asians call America home now. And before that act, only 105 Chinese people could move to the US every year. So that's like everyone in this Zoom room, if you just brought a couple of your friends, and that would be it. Those would be the Chinese people in America added every year. So my family specifically immigrated to Austin 4 years after that policy was passed. And I exist here today because of people making, good trouble and good policy. And this is why who's in power really matters. It's why policy matters. It's why Black Lives Matter. It's why coalition building matters so much and why that's so important to all of us who are part of this event today. And this is why I'm so grateful that y'all all chose to invest your lucky money for the year with us tonight. And all of your donations, you should know, are going to voter outreach and civic engagement efforts in our local Asian community, but also outreach for all communities of color throughout Travis County with the Travis County Democratic Party, who's helping us host this tonight. And this past election year, we increased our presidential voter turnout in Travis County, specifically for all populations, by about 34%. And so that's so many new voters that we need to keep engaged and keep turning out. And that's because of the work of all of you guys here who helped make that happen. And I don't mean to brag, but the AAPI turnout specifically in Travis County was increased by 82%, which is mind blowing. That's a lot of new voters that we need to keep engaged and educated, involved. And so with that, I would like to turn it over to Katie Naranjo, the chair of the Travis County Democratic Party. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Sabrina. I'm so excited to learn and celebrate Lunar New Year with both of you, and especially with our segment hosts. This is a step towards community outreach for the party that is so important. Talking with many of our community leaders like Alice Yee and others I see joining us this evening who they're responsible for that 82% and the work that they're doing to engage folks. The party is here to be a support for that engagement. And so we're honored to be able to join in this effort to share the proceeds with Asian Democrats of Central Texas. But for all the money that we raise tonight, it's going towards voter outreach, not just within the Asian community, well, the many different Asian communities in Travis County, by the way, but also the Hispanic communities, the Black community, and across Travis County. And so why that's important is that the elected officials who have Democrat next to their name, we represent them, they represent us, but they don't always represent our community. And so we are taking a three-prong approach that's really important. One is for the party itself to learn and listen to our communities. Two, for the party to train our elected officials and activists to be good allies and accomplices for the communities that we're engaging, and to be representative of those communities. And then three, to make sure that we're reaching into the community and lifting up the leaders of that community to run for office, and to make sure that we have a representative government for all communities at all levels. And that means folks like Pooja, who's on with us today, running for office, yay Pooja, but having, and I know Judge Todd Wong's trying to get admitted right now, but Judge Todd Wong and others who feel a call to service. You don't have to just run for office, but taking that step to be engaged. And so for us to lift up those leaders and recognize them and support them and engage. And so also an important message that I want to make sure we communicate is to support our local businesses. So particular thanks to Llilian with Lotus Institute, Phyllis with PK Wellness, and Sohan with West China Tea, because you're investing your time and effort with us. And so we very much appreciate that, and will in return invest in the local businesses that we also on business issues seek to represent and support. But that's why it's important to invest in the party, because it's the elected officials making those decisions that impact our daily lives and making sure that they understand the impact and issues that affect each community. And thank you, Ashley, for bringing attention particularly to the most recent hate crimes against people in our community. It hasn't been well publicized, and it's something that we have to call out and recognize so that all people feel protected and supported in our community. And that's what I'm so excited about, tonight's event, is we're expanding that community. So Charlie and I both say thank you for having us, and we look forward to learning a lot tonight. And thank you, Ashley and Sabrina, for putting this together.
Yeah, and again, thank you to everyone who's here with us today. And thank you so much to our sponsors for making it possible. And without further ado, oh, I forgot to say who I am. I'm Sabrina. I'm a precinct chair here with the Travis County Democratic Party, and I'm one of the co-chairs for the Finance and Fundraising Committee. But without further ado, I want to introduce you guys to someone really special, and that's Llilian Pearl Bridges. So Llilian is a master face reader. She's one of the world's leading authority on face reading and diagnosis. So she is the one that is credited for bringing this body of ancient knowledge back to the field of Chinese medicine and introducing it into Western medicine and business. So she's created special programs at the Lotus Institute, which is her website, which I'll link down, and her kind of business based on her wisdom to help you understand your true nature and communicate yourself better to the world and live in a way that nurtures who you are. In addition to joining us tonight, she's been on numerous radio and television shows and was recently featured on Dr. Oz. So I'm super excited to have her introduce Lunar New Year to us.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. I think it's a wonderful cause. And for those of you who don't know or can't tell, I am actually half Chinese. My mother's from Shanghai. And actually, her mother was from Ningpo and her father was from Shandong. But I was raised with my Chinese family in Los Angeles. So I'm actually very Chinese, especially on the inside and especially the way I cook. But I'm here to talk about the Chinese New Year. For the last 20 years, I have been writing a forecast every year, primarily because my uncle was a Chinese astrologer. He actually died last year, but he was a Chinese astrologer, and I used to talk to him every year about what was going to happen, and what was going to happen to all of us in the world and all that. And he didn't teach me how to do Chinese astrology. I have to admit that. I know a bit about every single animal, but I do know a lot about the 5 elements. And every year, there's an element for the year. There's also an element for the animal. And this particular year is the year of the golden ox, which is actually, it sounds kind of good, doesn't it? And it is kind of good. The elements of the year are yin metal over yin earth. And last year was double yang, this year is double yin. So you can see right away that we're going from some really aggressive energies to some really softer, more peaceful energies. Let's put it that way. Thank goodness, because I'm tired, and I'm sure some of you are too. And more conciliatory, more cooperative. It's a really good year for things like signing treaties and helping other people and doing things for social services and all that. So there's some really good things about this year. Now, that being said, the ox is a great animal. I mean, the Chinese love the ox because it works hard. It plows the field and works with the farmer. And usually there's 2 oxes, but I only chose 1 this year, primarily because the metal says that it's more individual. So it's 1 farmer, 1 ox. And it's that cooperation between, 2 people, which leads to a lot of cooperation, amongst everybody this year, which is a great thing. So with this year, oxes are slow. They're very calm, peaceful animals unless you wave those red flags. So just so you know, it doesn't mean this year will be without tension, but you have to cause some trouble. Otherwise, people won't get mad as easily. And it's not a good year to get really mad. It's a much better year to be compassionate and to be kind and to be caring, which is something I really like. But I also know, good trouble is exactly right. You can cause good trouble. Don't cause bad trouble. But this is a year where the 2 elements feed each other. So that the earth element, generates metal. And so that's actually considered really good. And one of the biggest things about this year is because the ox is slow, it's going to take time for the rewards of the year to come. It's obviously a good year for farming because that's what the animal's about. It's a good year for steady progress, growth, step-by-step incremental growth. It's kind of like by the end of the year, there will be more growth than you think, but you won't have seen like big jumps. But at the end of the year, you go, wow, look what happened. I have more money in my savings account, or I have, more people that have signed up, or, whatever it is, it'll be incremental and you won't see it easily as it happens, but you'll see it afterwards. And so the elements of the year also indicate that the best time of this year will be summer and fall, which are harvest times, because the ox is going to help the farmer, plow the field and then plant the seeds and, water the plants and hope the sun shines and, keeps waiting until there's harvest time. And the two harvest times are summer and fall. So that does mean there's reward towards the end of the year, but you have to kind of wait until fall and to summer and fall. And that's one of the things, that you can't rush things this year. And so do things in somewhat of a methodical way and purposeful way, but don't try to get things done too fast. It's not a year for that. And this year doesn't support a lot of big, bold things. There's a couple of other curious factors in terms of the economy and business and all that. Politically, because you are involved in politics, this year is interesting to me because it does say that there is much progress that can be done. One of the things I wrote about in my forecast is the idea that we're still reacting to a lot of things that happened to last year. happened last year. And so there's things like, renewing and rebuilding and, reorganizing and all these rewords, which is like plowing. We keep going back to what was wrong and then fixing it to make it right and coming up with new ways to fix things. And I think what I like most about the year personally is that the metal element is about ideals. And there are some wonderful ideals that metal upholds. Things like personal responsibility, which I happen to think is a big deal. And that's a really important one this year. There's ideals of compassion and kindness for those who are less fortunate than other people. There's a lot of ideals about making the environment better. I don't know that a lot of these things will be implemented this year because it's so yin. It'll be like the idea will come, okay, well, we really want to do this, but let's start planning. And then in subsequent years, especially probably next year and the year after, we're going to see some big doing. And so one of the things that is really recommended this year is that you rest. It was a hard year last year. Things will open up, I promise, slowly, but they will open up and things will get better. But it's not going to be a year where you can actually suddenly be free, because there's still restraint in that metal element. And in terms of what can be accomplished, a lot of planning can be done. A lot of fixing can be done as well. This is a really good year for building infrastructure, fixing things that are wrong with local communities, damage to the road. I mean, especially because it's about connecting one family member to another, connecting one city to another, connecting. So it's really big about bridges and roads and highways. So those are the kinds of things that you'll see local governments wanting to do more with. The country and between countries, you'll see a lot less aggression and obviously a lot less protesting as well, I'm sure, and a whole lot less violence, thank goodness. But you'll see that countries won't be so involved in territorial disputes or trying to cross borders and take new land. And you'll see a lot more diplomacy, real old-fashioned, polite, polished diplomacy, which I think is really good. And you'll see people trying to create things like unity and trying to work together. It's not going to be easy. I mean, some people are still going to be very stuck in some very stubborn, and the earth part of stubborn ideas, but a lot of other people will really start waking up this year and starting to see things kind of more logically and rationally, because that's the metal part of it. And that a lot of people will feel like they're coming out of a dream state, mostly because they've been staying home and hunkering down, and come out and kind of go, wow, there's a whole world out here. But also because their thinking will be changed, also because of a lot of factual information that will come out. And one of the issues right now is that the tail of the rat is unfortunately very strong. Rats and oxes go together because when Buddha called the animals, the rat jumped on the ox's back. The ox got there first, but the rat jumped off and claimed first place. Okay, and so the rat has this kind of power, and unfortunately the rat's tail is very active because it's a very young animal from last year. And even though we're in the spring festival already, started February 3rd with New Year's Day, on Friday, February 12th, the rat's still a little bit active, and it's going to be a little bit slow getting into the ox, because the ox is not like this bold animal that comes out and says, okay, I'm ready. The rat's still a little bit active. So that's why you're going to get that really big cold spell that's coming your way, I believe, very soon. That's part of the rat. That's why the dam broke in India, the glacier dam, because that's still the tail of the rat causing trouble, darn it. You're going to see that for a little bit longer than usual. And so, the rat will finally go. It's going to take maybe even nearly a month to really get into the ox. But once we do, it'll just calm down. It'll just get easier. It'll just be better, and as the year goes on, it gets better and better. And in terms of more interpersonal things, a lot of family reunions will happen, of course, because we're going to finally get out, but it's also a good year for healing estrangements between family members. It's a really good year for really spending time in small groups, not large groups. It's not meant to be like a huge party year. It's meant to be, being able to go out to lunch with your friends again, which I can't wait, actually. It's also interestingly a year that I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at how how important this year is going to end up being because of the ability to plan for the future. That you're going to look back from, years in the future and go, well, that's when things started. That's when things really started to like get better, when we started to figure out what we wanted to do. And so I think there's a kind of a secret benefit that's going to happen. And then the last thing I really want to talk about is you need to rest, because next year will be really big, and last year was really hard. And I really want people to not overwork and overdo. It's not that you can't work, but in terms of the economy, of course, things will open back up again. That's for sure. I mean, it's part of that harvest energy I talked about earlier. But there's something here about changing our priorities so that what's really important isn't always just about, how hard we work to make that much money, or to find what we used to think is successful. Because what the metal element really wants you to do is achieve things that make you feel proud of what you've accomplished, that you've done something important. And I think that's something that you're all doing here. So I just wanted to honor that. And I also want to say, I'm sure you all know, because you're Asian, most of you, that, you're supposed to eat these lucky foods. I wanted to make a little comment here. I'm really big into, of course, Chinese food and Chinese cooking and lucky foods, but I was taught that you have 2 weeks, not just New Year's Day. You have 2 weeks to eat the lucky foods. And there's all these lucky foods, so you have 2 weeks, not just one day. So just know that. And so you actually can eat a lot of things that are lucky, which is, who doesn't like to eat, good food that's also lucky as well. So yes, I will also do like Phyllis is doing, the dumplings and the whole fish and the noodle, long leg noodles and all those things. But I'm still going to also celebrate for the next 2 weeks, because I think we should celebrate for longer, especially since we got over last year, which was so hard. And this year, I believe will be so much better. And I think we can all breathe a sigh of relief soon. Okay, soon. Next month for sure, we'll kind of go, okay, it's different. It's calmer, it's easier, it's more peaceful, that we feel like, it's a year that just doesn't have the drama of last year, thank goodness, because I don't know if I could do any more of last year for too much longer. So that's what I wanted to tell you today. Please have hope. This will be a better year, and it will get better over time. So by the time we get to, summer and fall, you're going to start seeing huge improvements. And by the end of the year, I think you'll look back and go, wow, that was not bad. That was a pretty good year. And of course, every animal that we are, in terms of the year and the month and day and hour, influence that. But I really think that overall it's actually a much better year than last year. So I wish you all good luck this year. Happy New Year. Gunjifeze for my Shanghai family. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Llilian. That was amazing. That was such a gift for all of us. I think everyone, I'm sure, in the Zoom room right now is just so filled up and more hopeful than when we came into the Zoom room, which is what I was hoping you would say. And so thank you for that
You're
reading
so
for
welcome.
us. It's been so special having you here, such a treat. And with that, I am going to introduce our next guest, who is the reason why we were able to get Llilian to come share with us. And that is my very dear friend, Phyllis Kung, is going to speak to us. Now, she is not only is she a phenomenal healer, traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, a local acupuncturist, but she is also herself an activist and an organizer, just like many of y'all who are here supporting us tonight. She's, I correct me if I'm wrong, she hosted a letter writing party for our friends for, I think it was to flip the Senate. Is that right? Is it the Senate or Congress? Like the Senate. So we have Phyllis and her and our friends to thank also for flipping the Senate. So thank you for that, Phyllis. She also specializes with her local clinic, PK Acupuncture and Wellness. I see her sister Dr. Debbie Kung here as well, who also practices with her. I'm going to drop the link to PK Wellness and Acupuncture. So if y'all picked up your red envelope lucky goodie bag for this event, you also received a very generous gift card from Phyllis to PK Acupuncture and Wellness. So I hope that you guys will go visit her. She specializes in fertility and cosmetic acupuncture and chronic pain and just all of the life stress that we've had from this past year. She will go cure all of what ails you. But Phyllis is here to talk to us a little bit more about traditional cultural values of Lunar New Year, and also just some general wellness practical tips for us to have a prosperous and healthy year.
Thanks, Ashley. Hi, everybody. So one of the cool things as a Chinese medicine practitioner is that we not only get to poke people with needles, which is more fun for us than you, just kidding. It's great for everyone. We also, Chinese medicine uses a couple of different ways to try and integrate itself into the culture. It's also based on a lot of Taoist and 5-element beliefs that run throughout Chinese culture. So when I work with people on getting ready for the new year, we do a couple of different things outside of just my practice of needles and herbs and cupping. I also get to help people with their lifestyle because, you know, having an easy life is one of the highest values in Chinese culture. Easy doesn't always mean exciting, but it means healthy and a long life. And yes, it can be exciting, but there's this whole idea of trying to keep things on the level, because in not just Chinese culture, but in most cultures, what comes up also has to go down. So I've got a couple of tips for you to try and help keep a nice, easy transition into the new year and the spring festival and the spring season. So going along with the idea of 5 elements, the spring season is the prime element for the wood element, which corresponds to our liver. In Chinese medicine, there's this idea that each season is the time to nourish and support a different part of our body, and a time of year where that particular organ shines. And so the springtime is for the liver. And the liver in Chinese medicine is very similar to the liver that you guys are probably more familiar with, the liver that detoxes the body and can easily come under stress, the same idea in Chinese medicine. So the spring is a time to awaken the liver, and especially after the year we've had where we taxed our livers to the max with anger and impatience and alcohol and fatty, sugary foods and maybe upping our medication. It's a good time to try and give it a little bit of a hug and reset it and treat it very nice so that it will support us through the rest of the year. There are a couple different ways we can do that. Diet is probably one of the easiest ways to support the liver. Since it's spring and there's new young fresh shoots growing out of the ground, sprouts and tender leafy greens, even some leftover kale and chard from the winter months are all really great for feeding the liver. A great way to get good livery foods is to subscribe to a local CSA, like Johnson's Backyard Garden, or use a service like Trashless or something like that. Also, the liver really loves slightly sour foods, not super sour foods, just slightly sour foods that contain pectin. Pectin is an ingredient that's really great at soothing the liver and also helps to reduce cholesterol and kind of cleanse things out that we've built up over the winter. You can find pectin in apples and pears. Citrus fruits have tons of pectin, but a lot of vegetables of the season, like green beans and peas, which are great in the springtime, also contain lots of pectin for the liver. Next, kind of one of the things we like to focus on too are exercises for the liver. And so I've got 3 little Qigong stretches that I'm going to demonstrate for you guys that you can do at any time, as long as you've got room to do them. You can even do them seated or standing. And Qigong is a really cool sounding term that gets thrown around, but really just means like exercise in Chinese medicine. And don't worry, it's nothing too intense. Our ideal form of exercise in general is just walking. See, we're all about that easy path. So we'll just kind of talk you through them. There are 3 stretches. The first one is called 2 hands to heaven, 2 hands holding up heaven. And it's all about stretching and opening up the chest and abdomen to let in lots of fresh air, breathe in all the good luck of the new year, and also give our liver and our lungs plenty of room to expand and have space to move. And so I think I've set this camera up right. I think I can actually stand up and do it. Yeah, if you're wearing a qipao, this might not work as well, or something tight. But the basic idea is you want to just stand with your feet about hip distance apart, and you're going to just kind of move your body through your breath. So you're going to start by inhaling and literally using your hands to kind of bring everything up and lift up your body, open your chest so that you can expand and make lots of room to fill your lungs with air. And then as you get to the heart level, you want to flip your hands so that you're actually helping to push all the air out of you, and a big exhale. And it's called two hands holding up heaven, because you lift and you push heaven up. So if you feel like the sky or the world is crashing down on you and you need some room for your liver and your lungs to breathe, just bring everything up and push it out and away. I love to start the morning with this. It's also really great when you've got kids who are like on you all the time and making you hunch over and carry the weight of the world on you. The next one is called Separating Heaven and Earth. And you can do this seated or standing, but it's also a great way just to kind of stretch the side body. As you may or may not know, our liver is this big hulking organ all throughout here, but it kind of touches both sides. We got to give it plenty of room to move, which is why yoga is also a great exercise to do during the spring. So this is the same idea of just kind of breathing and moving. You're going to just kind of move your hands in opposite directions as you breathe and stretch and lean into one side. Bring your hands together. If you want to get fancy, you can cross them, but really just kind of moving and stretching back and forth. Any way you'd like, just to kind of help open up that side body, give yourself lots of room. And then the last one we're going to do, which is really great for when you are feeling frustrated and angry, because that is what the liver likes to do sometimes. But you want to find a nice way to supplement or displace that anger without yelling or writing an angry Facebook post or Twitter post that your tweet that you're going to regret later, we call this clenching or punching fists while glaring fiercely. So same idea, you're going to stand with your feet hip distance apart, sink into your knees a little bit, and you're going to try to put your fists clenched by your waist, and then you just punch forward to shoulder height. And this is actually Qigong. People think you may just be crazy or just working out, whatever, but you're doing like Qigong. So it sounds cooler that you're just punching the air. But it's a really great way to work out aggression. You know, think about traffic on I-35. Why is there traffic when we're in a pandemic? What's going on? But anyway, that's a couple of different exercises to help relieve some tension for the liver and keep it nice and happy through the spring. And the last thing I'm going to do is talk a little bit about mindset, because mindset is a huge part of health in Chinese medicine. The mind and body are connected. You know, that's why we get so much credit as acupuncturists for being such great mind-body practitioners, because Chinese culture really looks at the link between mind and body. And so with the spring and the liver, there is this want for being impatient and a little angry, which I'm sure all of us are feeling some form of pandemic fatigue at this point and feeling a little impatient and angry at times. I know it happens to me all the time when I'm like, oh my gosh, just pull your mask up. But you know, something we have to work on. One of the last thing we like to do for mindset, and when there is anger, is to really focus on trying to control all that fire that comes with anger, right? When we get angry, you can feel your face flush. You kind of feel like things just are going to explode. So a really great way to kind of bring things back in actually has a lot to do with the element this new year, metal. Wood is the liver element and metal is the year element, and the element that helps to rein in metal, right? Like an axe to chop down a tree. And so one of the great things is to think about what you can do with this anger, right? How you can channel the anger into action. So that's definitely a process you can definitely do, like maybe writing down steps or writing down things that you think could help resolve the issue that you're having. Another great thing is crying. Crying is actually, when I was in Chinese medicine school, one of my teachers used to always say, if you're angry, let someone punch you till you cry, which is, I would not recommend, but crying does help to create that sort of release and create that feeling where you go back into yourself and get reconnected with your body. So instead of like having everything fume out of you, you're just kind of melting back into yourself. So yeah, crying is great. Becky, that's awesome. You've got a head start on everyone. And it doesn't always have to be sad crying. It can be like cute crying. Like sometimes I cry at Google commercials, which is really sad, but it could be like cute puppies or like a romantic comedy, or you know, I don't know if you want to invest in like some very volatile stock like GameStop and that makes you cry. You can do that too if you really want to. But, you know, something that will kind of help you like release in a way that's not angry and explosive. So don't be afraid to cry. It's a great year to just kind of, you know, we'll get through this. We just got another month, according to Llilian, of all this crazy, young, fire-driven stuff. So we've got a whole couple of months to take care of our liver and get it nice and ready and healthy and happy to welcome in the summer and the fall. So that's basically it. Oh, and also acupuncture helps, but you know, you knew that already.
I'm gonna drop again, or someone else drop the link again to PK Acupuncture Wellness here in Austin. And definitely go see Phyllis, especially with your coupon. Thank you, Phyllis, so much for that. I just have to say, I'm loving this event so much. I am getting so much out of this, and I hope that you guys are too. Our next speaker, I am so thrilled about. My friend Sohan Fan is here from West China Tea Company, and he is someone who really lives the values that are so important to us as the Democratic Party. In his work, you know, I know that his company does amazing. They're all about building community around the culture of tea also. And I know that he's been working so hard to make sure that he's taking care of his employees during this really hard time to be in sort of like food related industries. And also, you know, as I mentioned earlier, with the rise in anti-Asian racism, I think it's likely a really hard time to be a Chinese tea company these days in Austin. And West China Tea does amazing work. He sources his teas directly from family farms in China and works with them directly. And also he sources teas to local restaurants in town like Sour Duck and Odd Duck and Suerte and Otoko. And I so value and respect what he's doing. I'm not going to waste any more of your time because I know we're going to learn so much during his Kung Fu Cha ceremony. So Sohan, take it away.
There we go. Now I'm unmuted. Thank you so much, Ashley. I want to start by acknowledging all of the amazing people who just spoke. This is a great event. Llilian, Llilian's sharing this really in-depth, going way beyond the placemat at the Chinese restaurant, you know, Chinese astrology, look at the year, and saying the emergence, the eclipsing of this very yang rat year with this now yin ox year. And we just had 5 women, or anyway, not cis men, speak with such insight and leadership. It was really amazing to see. And, you know, we have our first female vice president in our history. And so Ashley, I really appreciated your land acknowledgement. And, and I think that in your little introduction, I heard more political sense than I've heard collectively in the last 5 years. So I really appreciate that. And then Katie, also, I really appreciate what you said about holding the party accountable, that they're, you know, if we want the party to be the party we want them to be, then we need to make them the party we want them to be. And then, yes, Llilian's really amazing in-depth insight into Chinese astrology. I learned a lot from that, and I'm very, very excited for a little bit of a reprieve from last year. And then Phyllis, that was an amazing segment. I'm so excited to give my liver a hug. It definitely needs a hug this year. So I just want to acknowledge, and Sabrina also for holding it down and for introducing everybody and for holding such great professional space and such leadership and for organizing this. So I want to acknowledge all y'all. That's great. Crush the patriarchy. That's good. I feel like it's happening. We're moving into this, you know, a new phase. And so I'm excited about that. And tea. So tea. I gave y'all some little packets of tea. I don't know if any of you have them with you. Raise your hand if you actually have some of this tea with you that I stuck in y'all's little bags. Did anyone get this? I can't actually see everybody. That's okay. Yeah, I see people got it. All right. If you have it and you have the capacity to heat up water, then I think it'd be really cool if you want to go ahead and get your tea out and open your little packet and pour it out and drink this tea along with me. I'm going to drink some Golden Turtle today. This is what we sent you, is a tea called Golden Turtle. And I didn't even realize it was the year of the metal ox, the gold ox. Yes, you can use your electric kettle. No, I'm using an electric kettle. It's all good. It's all good. This is what we're about to do is called Gong Fu Cha. And this is Chinese tea culture. It is not a ceremony, so to speak. When we hear about tea culture, East Asian tea culture, we often think about tea ceremony, which is Japanese, and it's very formal. And there are formal branches of Chinese tea culture, and I love Japanese tea ceremony, but it is a ceremony, and there are certain things that you do and that you don't do. Gong Fu Cha can be thought of as a discipline. It is an art. It is a skill set, and what is it? It's the way that we make tea. Chinese people take tea very, very seriously. It's a very essential part of Chinese culture. And because they take so much care growing and processing it, it can be very expensive, it can be very valuable. And as such, when we are drinking it, we want to take special care in how we prepare it. Just the way if you get very, very nice organic food, you still need to cook it and prepare it so that you can get the full enjoyment of it. The same is true of tea. You can think of it as like cuisine, an art like cuisine, but there's just the two ingredients, tea and water. So when we are making tea in this style, but we don't need to think of it as a ceremony. We can think of it as a practice, an art, a meditation when you want it to be, because it does require mindfulness and focus. But most of all, for us here in Austin, it's a social activity. And it's a community building activity. And it is a thing that people gather around and enjoy together. And it's not alcohol, and it's not toxic, and it's not inebriant. And so there's something really special that happens. And this is what Ashley was talking about. And when you think about tea here, we think it's a beverage, and it is, in many instances it is. But this particular style of tea service in China takes the beverage that is tea and makes it the center of a community activity and a social activity. And so what we do at our tea house, at West China Tea House here in Austin, we're right off I-35. We're just north of the In-N-Out Burger. We're on the southbound I-35 road. And it's big. It's a big 3,000 square foot space. And the reason we need all that space just to drink tea is because it's not just about drinking tea. People sit with each other, with complete strangers when it's not a pandemic. Obviously, we were severely affected by the year 2020 and the pandemic. We managed to survive through a fundraiser, thank God, by the help of the community. So that was a story. So yes, Ashley, yes, it was hard to be a business owner last year, not because I did not feel any specific obstacles from being Chinese American. I did feel specific obstacles from being a small business owner in 2020, very targeted obstacles in that department. But if you come here, traditionally what we do is that people hang out, they drink tea, and they drink tea for hours and hours, and they drink this kind of tea. And so if you have your tea, and I just talked a lot, so you should be able to get your water hot by now. And so I'm going to make this tea, and you can make this tea along with me. And if you don't have all this fancy teaware like I have, that's fine. Just put it in a mug and put some hot water on it and let it sit for a minute. And I'm going to advise you, this is a good way to do it, a little bit fancy. Heat your mug first, rinse it out with hot water, heat it, pour that out, and then put your tea in your mug and then pour just a little bit of water, just enough to cover the tea leaves with hot water. You can use boiling hot water. And just let it sit there for a little while I'm talking. And then at a certain point, I will tell you then to add more water, and then you can start drinking it with me. In the meantime, I'm going to introduce this practice to you. And so again, this practice is a way good. Awesome, Cannon. You're off to a great start. I don't know what you're talking about, but maybe you're making tea. Hopefully you're making tea with me. This practice, the essence of this practice and what makes it different from just drinking tea like you would at a Chinese restaurant or at grandma's house is that we're going to use a large amount of tea. And this practice in this modern form, the modern form of Gong Fu Cha, its origins can be traced back to the southeast of China, in Chaozhou, southern Fujian, which is the southern part of China where people do grow tea. But the culture of tea in China can be traced back to the Tang Dynasty, at least. The earliest book written about the subject of tea culture by Lu Yu, the Cha Jing, was written 1,200 years ago, more than 1,200 years ago now. And so back in the Tang Dynasty. And so tea culture extends way back. It's changed forms in many ways, but this modern practice of doing it the way that I'm about to do it does come to us from Chaozhou, the inhabitants of the eastern part of Guangdong province, Chaozhou, and then all the way into southern Fujian if you continue east along the southern shore coast of China. And so just acknowledging where this culture came from. It's not, China is not a monolith. So I'm going to start by warming up all of our vessels. And this is my tea set, and these are my tools that I use to make tea. This is I'm using a way less fancy tea set than I would have, except the tea house was really busy today, and we had a bunch of different reservations, with 3 reservations at the same time. So all of our fancy teaware was in use. So I'm using a much less fancy tea set than I usually use, but it's not important. What's important is what is going on. So I'm going to open the tea service by heating my vessels. This is the first step in the tea service, is boiling the water and heating your vessels. And so I'm going to heat my vessels. And as I do that, I'm going to be going through the motions that I would be doing if I were making tea with actual leaves, which I will do in a minute. But I'm going to use this as an opportunity to introduce all of these objects so that you understand what I am doing and what they're called. A lot of these don't have English names. And so I'm going to use the Chinese names for those I'm going to use the Chinese names for everything, and you'll get to learn it. So I'm going to first heat my primary vessel, which is called a gaiwan. Gaiwan means lid, bowl. Gai means lid, wan means bowl. And so this is a very old tea making instrument. This is the oldest tea steeping vessel. It dates back to the Ming Dynasty, and they've been using them for a long time. Traditionally, the way these work is that you've got a bowl with a lid, and the lid fits inside of it, not over the top. And traditionally, people would put their tea and their water in this, and they would drink directly from it. And they would strain the tea and keep the leaves out of their mouth by skewing the lid ever so slightly, canting it ever so slightly to allow a little aperture for the water to come out, the tea to come out. Now, modern day, we use these to pour tea in the same way that one would use a teapot, where we're using it to steep the tea, strain the tea, and then to serve the tea from. And so I'm going to heat up my gaiwan by filling it with hot water. That's a fancy way to do it. And now that it's all nice and warm, I'm going to heat up all my other things with the same water. And give it another one just to get it warm. So my tea is in here. My tea leaves are in here, and that makes it my primary vessel. Wherever the leaves and the water are together at the same time is my primary vessel. When it's done steeping, when it's finished, I'm going to decant it into this secondary vessel. This is called a gongdao bei. This is a really cool word. This is a very politically relevant word. Gongdao bei means justice cup. Gongdao means justice. What if you break this word down? Gong means the public, the people. And Dao means the way, as in Taoism. And so the way of the public is justice in Chinese. I think that's really cool, totally relevant to progressive politics. So there's that. Why do we call it that? Because when we steep the tea, if I were to serve the tea directly from the steeping vessel into the cups, the first person to get served gets the weakest tea. The last person to get served gets the strongest tea. It's not just. And so we homogenize the steeping. When it's done steeping, we stop the steeping process by decanting it, and we homogenize the tea in a single vessel so that everybody is getting the same concentration of tea. And so it's called a justice cup. And then from there, we pour it into our cha bei. Cha bei means teacup. You can just say teacup. These ones, we don't have an English word for them, but these ones we do. So the point of learning Chinese isn't just to flex. You can flex with it. It's not just to flex. It's because there's no word for some of these things. And so we learn the Chinese word. If you like wine, you're going to learn some French. If you like tea, you're going to learn some Chinese. So says I. So from our cha bei, our teacups, we're going to, now they're warm. Remember the exercise right now is to warm our vessels. We're going to empty them. This little dude that I'm emptying my cups onto is a little statue that's called a teapot. And these are little figurines made out of clay. And this one is a little forest creature that has part animal, part mushroom. This was handmade by a woman named Lin from Liangtu Studio in Xishuangbana. That's a husband and wife duo in Xishuangbana. He's of Dai heritage, she's Han heritage, and they make Dai pottery. And she makes these little animal figurines. And you pour tea over them, and they develop a patina, and they age, and they get darker as you use them. And they're just for fun. They're just to be cute and fun. But you pour water and tea out in this process. And so you want to pour it on something cute. Yes, they're very cute. They're very cute. They can get cuter than this. There's actually a Chinese CGI movie called Tea Pets. It's basically Chinese Toy Story. It's actually worth watching. So now I've got everything warm. And then the last pieces are, this box that I'm using here is called a cha pan. A cha pan means a tea plate or a tea surface. It drains so that I can spill, you see me spilling water all over the place. It drains down into this basin so that I can just pour water wherever I want, not have to worry about it. Because when we're doing this, it can be a very casual, very chill process. And when you want it to be that way, then you don't want to worry about dabbing up water after you. You want to just spill water wherever you want and have it be fine. So I'm doing that style tonight. Golden turtle. Why did I do golden turtle? Well, this was not my actual reason, but because it's the year of the golden ox. So we don't have any golden ox tea, but we do have golden turtle. This is an oolong tea from Anxi County in southern Fujian. Remember, I was talking about the people of southern Fujian are the part of the originators of this culture. And so we have this tea. It's an oolong tea. What is oolong? All tea is one plant. You're getting the very condensed version of this whole thing. I teach a 2.5-hour class on this. All tea is one plant, Camellia sinensis, and its close relatives. Green tea is unoxidized. Black tea is fully oxidized. Oolong tea is somewhere in the middle. Where in the middle? This one's closer to green tea. Some oolongs are darker, closer to black tea. And so that's what we're going to be drinking today. If you're ready to drink along with me, now is the time to pour the water into your mug that has been steeping. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Sohan, we had a question of how much tea they should be using also in the chat.
Enough to cover the bottom of the vessel. Enough to cover the bottom of the vessel. I'm using more because I'm going to stop my steeping process when it's done. You are doing what is affectionately called grandpa style at home, unless you're using a vessel like this. You're doing what's called grandpa style. You're just letting your tea sit in your water and you're drinking it. That's fine. You can do that. This is the controlled and precise way of pouring tea. You're doing a more casual, informal way of pouring tea, of drinking tea. I'm going to show you what we do here at this tea house, and I invite you all, especially if you're in Austin, to come and visit us here. Everyone has a packet of tea. Yes. Yeah. If you got your packet of tea, put some in a mug, put some hot water on it, and then we're adding our hot water now. And so I'm going to add my hot water, and I'm going to almost immediately drain it off. There. And this is the rinse. I just woke up my tea ware by rinsing it with hot water. And now I'm waking up my tea by rinsing it with hot water. And now I can see that my leaves have expanded and opened. They're not all the way open. I'm going to steep this tea many times. So as I was saying earlier before, what is the difference between this and grandpa style? What is the difference between this and tea in a big teapot? What makes this gong fu cha? I'm using a lot of leaves. The leaves are filling the vessel. They're not even expanded all the way yet. Second, I'm using a small vessel, which means a little bit of water, not very much water, just this much. And that's why we have these little cups. And then third, I'm steeping it many times, and I'm steeping it very quickly. So you just saw me steep it very quickly. And this one's not even for us. This is for the tea bag. There you go. That first steeping, we're just waking the tea up. We're just rinsing it. And now I'm going to get into the real deal, the first steeping that we're going to drink. And again, I'm just going to steep it very briefly. If you're at home, again, you're not trying to do any of this. You're just drinking your tea out of a mug. If you have a teapot, if you have a French press, you can follow along with me. If you have a gaiwan, then good for you. We should talk. If you don't have a gaiwan and you want one, we should also talk. And there we go. This is the steeping that we are actually going to drink. And if anyone is drinking their tea out there, how is it? How's it taste? How's it smell? I'd love to, and chat me some of your tasting notes. I'd love to see them. Yes, you will have to come to the store. It'd be awesome to see all y'all at the store. Literally, y'all can come have your meetings at the store when it's not a pandemic or whatever, because I really love what's going on here. I'm feeling so inspired. I've been very, I'm going off on a little bit of tangent here, but I've been very disillusioned with the political process in general but just hearing the integrity with which y'all are representing the values that I believe represent what is true progressivism is very, very inspiring for me. So I'm super excited to be involved with this event. Thank you for inviting me. Cheers. 春节快乐. This is Happy Chinese New Year, Happy Spring Festival. 恭喜发财. Hope you get rich. The very traditional greeting. May you get rich like a golden turtle, and may your liver be hugged, and may the year be much, much more nourishing, calming, and chill than the last year and the last 4 or 5 years. And I saw someone commenting earlier the immense degree of relief they felt. That must be the horn of the ox if we're now in the tail of the rat. But the horn of the ox, I also felt the horn of the ox after the election. The immense sense of physical relief and release from that event, and I felt like I could stand up straight for the first time in a long time. And so when you come to this tea house, or when you do this at home with your friends and family, what we're doing is we are sharing something the way that people share food or share alcohol. You know, traditionally in our society, the social beverage is alcohol. Alcohol is fine. There's plenty of ways to do that. It can be problematic. It can be destructive. It's toxic, and it is not inclusive, because there are people who cannot or should not drink alcohol, and there are people whose religions, like Muslims, like Buddhists, prevent them from participating in alcohol culture. And tea is much more inclusive. Everyone can drink tea. You don't have to know anything about it. You don't have to be familiar with it. You don't have to, you know, vegans can drink tea. Tea is gluten-free. The only people who really can't drink tea are like Mormons and some very observant Vaishnavas, because there's caffeine in it, but they can drink herbs, and we have herbs, and we do serve herbs in the Gaiwan just like this, and we do the same thing. Basically, it amounts to people hanging out, sitting around, enjoying plants, drinking them out of little bitty cups. And the nature of it is very inclusive. It is very community building, because you got this little cup, you can't just walk away. If you want more tea, you got to sit there with everybody else. And it is an environment that is inclusive and expressive, and people have the opportunity to build deep, meaningful, lucid connections and discuss relevant and important things in a safe and inclusive environment. So thank you guys so much. Why is it relevant to Chinese New Year? You cannot think about Chinese culture without thinking about tea. It is literally impossible. Tea is very much the blood of the body that is Chinese culture in many ways. And so, yeah. And I think that's, I'm not even paying attention to time. What time, how am I doing on time? When did I start? How am I doing?
You're good. But that was a lovely conclusion, and thank you so much for this. This was so informative. I used to not drink tea because my parents always drank it, and I was like, oh, like my parents aren't cool, I don't want it. And now all I pretty much do is drink tea. And next up, to end this amazing evening, if y'all can handle one more thing, we're gonna be showing you a video of a traditional lion dance performance. And so we're showing you a video from the Summit Lion Dance Team, which is a nonprofit organization here in Austin. And what they do is they bring their lion and dragon dance team the art, culture, and traditional significance of lion and dragon dancing to the Austin community and beyond. And so this team is composed of students ranging from kindergarten through college. And in the video, you're going to get to see, kind of what it's about. And I'm really excited to share this with you because I've gone to Chinese school when I was really young, and I would always, my parents would drop me off at school, and then I would hang out in the parking lot until the class was over, and then they would come and pick me up. And the only time that I would ever actually go inside to take the class was when I knew Lunar New Year was happening, and they would bring in the dancers inside the school. So I'm really excited to share a little bit of, my culture growing up with y'all. And for everyone who got their envelope, who got their little red lucky envelope. And if you haven't picked it up today, because I know quite a few did not, they're going to be still at the TCDP office. So just coordinate some times to go pick up yours. But you'll see in your envelope that there's this gold emblem, this gold thing on it. And this gold thing is a word. It's spring in Chinese. And so this is for Chinese New Year. And I know, every Asian culture celebrates Lunar New Year differently, but I thought it'd be really cool to let y'all know that if you get this envelope on actual Chinese New Year, which is on Friday, how we celebrate it in Chinese culture is on Friday, as in Chinese New Year, we flip it upside down to show that spring is here, because this is Cheng, and then if you put it upside down, it's Daola, which means it's fallen, but it's also a homonym for is here. So if it's upside down, then it means spring is here. So without any further ado, Brian, if you could play the video.
I was born in.
The last time I went back to Vietnam was when I was 6.
Vietnam is home. All my family's over there.
I was born in Los Angeles, California. My doctor, his last name was Goldstein. My parents didn't realize that it was his last name, so they chose that as my first name.
We were refugees from Vietnam after the Vietnam War, the fall of Saigon. It's very easy, if you live in America, you tend to assimilate with this culture, and it's an okay thing. But I also think it's important not to forget who you are. In Vietnam and in China, without lion dancing or dragon dancing, there is no New Year's. These students right here, I would say a majority of them, they do it because it's fun for them. As they get older, they start to think about the importance of dragon dancing. That's important because it gives them a sense of self-identity.
My parents always took me to this when I was little. It was really scary when you're like real tiny and you see these big lions. Now I know there's people in it, so it's not so scary.
I think the hardest exercise is to put someone on your shoulders and walk around.
It gives me an adrenaline rush, I'll say that.
All my friends are here. We hang out a lot, and they're like a second family to me.
All right, y'all. That's our event.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming, you guys. There is one correction. So as you guys know, I didn't go to Chinese school because I always waited in the parking lot. So this actually means luck. And it's not actually spring. So don't be putting it upside down, because that means your luck is bad.
This is the beauty of growing up as a Chinese American person. I think you get both of these cultures and stuff gets confusing sometimes.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for joining. This was so special to have you guys all here. We really, really appreciate it. Make sure to support all the amazing businesses who came out to support us today. And we'll see y'all. Have a great Year of the Ox.
Thank you, Sabrina and Ashley, for organizing this. This is really awesome. And I feel so relieved and just calm, and really glad we got to spend this time together. So thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.